He was richer than most countries in the world. Every day he earned more than an ordinary person would see in 1,000 lifetimes. He could stop a city, collapse an economy, erase a name from the face of the earth. In short, his name was Pablo Escobar. And this is not a story about drugs. This is a story about power, fear, and a man who decided that the rules existed for everyone except him. On the day of his death, Colombia exhaled. On the same day, thousands of people wept, because for some he was a monster, and for others, the only hope. But to understand who he became, we need to go back to a place where there was no money, no power, no choice. Colombia in the mid-20th century was a country where poverty was the norm, the law was a formality, and violence, the language everyone spoke. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born on December 1st, 1949, not in luxury, not in a criminal family. His mother was a teacher, his father, a farmer. He grew up among dirty streets, modest houses, and a constant feeling that the world owed something to someone, but not to you. From an early age, Pablo saw the respected were not the honest. The respected were the strong. The listened to were not the smart. The listened to were the dangerous. He didn't dream of a profession. He dreamed of money, because in his world, money decided everything. His first earnings were small and dirty. He stole, he resold, he forged. He even dug up gravestones and sold them again. This was not teenage rebellion. This was school. Pablo learned fast. He understood where there was weakness, where there was fear, where there was opportunity. And most importantly, he understood. If you made someone afraid, you already half-owned them. By the age of 20, he was already known in Medellin's criminal circles. Not as the most brutal, but as the most reliable. He always kept his promises, and he always punished betrayal. In the early 1970s, a new commodity appeared in Colombia. A white powder that in the U.S. was considered a pastime, but in South America, a chance to escape poverty. Cocaine. American cities wanted more and more. Colombia could provide everything, but it needed someone to connect these two worlds. Pablo Escobar realized this before anyone else. He started small, smuggling, logistics, connections, then planes, then routes, then control. He didn't invent the market, he dominated it. Very quickly, money stopped being a problem. The problem became its quantity. Banks couldn't handle it. Cash was stored in warehouses, houses, underground. Millions of dollars rotted, but by then no one cared. Pablo Escobar became the face of the Medellín Cartel, and then its brain, heart, and fist. He didn't just sell drugs. He built a system, with a strict hierarchy, with discipline, with absolute obedience. Police officers were given a choice: money or death. Politicians, money or death. Judges, money or death. The phrase plata o plomo, silver or lead, became the law of the land. Colombia began to live by his rules. But despite all this, Pablo understood one thing: fear doesn't last without love, and he began to buy it. He built houses for the poor, football fields, schools, churches. He handed out money on the streets. He smiled. He spoke to people in their own language. For the poor neighborhoods of Medellin, he was not a criminal. He was one of them. Pablo Escobar became a legend while still alive. People whispered about him. Myths were made about him. Children dreamed of him. By the early 1980s, he was on the list of the richest people on the planet. And then he decided that shadow was not enough. He wanted to step into the light. He wanted to become a politician. And it was at that moment that Pablo Escobar's story stopped being a story of rise and became a story of war. He wanted to be respected, not feared, respected. Pablo Escobar truly believed that money could buy everything, even the past, even reputation, even the law. He ran for the Colombian Congress not as a criminal, but as a philanthropist, a man of the people, a defender of the poor. He smiled from posters. He shook hands. He spoke the right words. And for a while, it worked. He became an alternate member of Congress. For Pablo, it wasn't a position. It was recognition, proof that he had stepped out of the shadows. But the system he tried to buy said no for the first time. Journalists began to dig. Politicians started to distance themselves. Newspapers published photos, connections, names. The name Pablo Escobar stopped being a whisper. It became a headline. He was expelled from politics, publicly, humiliatingly. And in that moment, he made a choice that would cost Colombia thousands of lives. If they would not accept him as a politician, he would become an enemy of the state. A war began. Pablo Escobar declared terror unofficially, but absolutely openly. Police officers, judges, prosecutors, journalists, everyone became a target. Explosions tore through cities. Cars became fireballs. Judges died on the steps of their own homes. Journalists, in their newsrooms. He did not hide. He demonstrated power. Every murder was a message, every explosion, a warning. Colombia lived in fear. Children grew up accustomed to sirens. People left their homes not knowing if they would return. The state responded. The U.S. joined the hunt. Extradition became Escobar's greatest fear. Not prison, not death, but an American cell where there were no deals, no influence, no way out. He tried to stop it with money, then with threats, then with blood. The loudest blow was the bombing of a passenger plane. He wanted to kill one man. Everyone died. That was the moment when even those who had stayed silent before turned away. Pablo Escobar stopped being one of us. He became a curse. The hunt intensified. Special services, agents, wiretaps, traitors. The noose tightened, and then Pablo offered a deal that no one believed in. He would surrender, but on his own terms. He built a prison for himself, with guards of his own men, with a bar, with a billiard table, with views of the mountains. It was called La Catedral. It was not a prison. It was a palace. From there, he continued to run his empire, continued to punish, continued to kill, until the state realized it had been deceived again. A new hunt began. Pablo went on the run. For the first time in his life, he became not the hunter but the prey. He changed houses, phones, people. Money no longer saved him. Love disappeared. Only fear remained. He called his family, too often, for too long, and one day they tracked him down. He knew his time had run out. Every sound could be the last. Every phone call, a trap. Pablo Escobar, the man who once could buy anything, found himself trapped by his own legend. His enemies were waiting. Special agents who had hunted him for years knew every route, every house, every hideout. He was hiding on the roof of one of Medellin's houses. The sun was setting, painting the city in orange light. Pablo looked at the city he had once conquered with his will and his money. And for the first time in his life, he felt fear. He thought of his family, his children, the woman he loved, of the fact that all of it, his empire, his fame, his fear, was crumbling. In that moment, a shot rang out, one, precise, final. The bullet ended the life of a man who could change the fate of a country with a single word, a single order, a single step. He fell, not as a king, not as a god. He fell as a mortal, as a man who had once been called immortal. And immediately after, Colombia exhaled. The city that had lived in fear could breathe again. But for many of Medellin's poor neighborhoods, the death of Pablo Escobar brought no relief. He left a legacy. His philosophy, pay or die. His system, corruption, fear, power. His legend, a man who became a symbol of everything people fear and desire. His name remained, in books, in movies, in songs, in conversations on the streets. The world kept moving, but the story of Pablo Escobar became a reminder. Power can be built on fear and money, But death comes for everyone, even those who were once above the law. And so, as in the finale of any great myth, a question remains. What is more important, wealth and power, or humanity and freedom? Pablo Escobar chose the first, and the world remembered him forever.